means that people can access or use their money wisely. And microfinance banking is one that has grown. And maybe just to begin, give us a distinction between a microfinance bank and a conventional bank.
A microfinance bank emerged from a microfinance institution. Now, if you go back to the roots, microfinance institutions were created to alleviate poverty.
Correct.
Now, the microfinance banks are also designed to, they came about to serve the lower income segments of society. Mm-hmm. Now, what's the difference between a microfinance bank and a commercial bank? Mm-hmm. One is that microfinance banks, as I've said, serve the lower income segment, mm-hmm. Whereas the commercial banks serve the larger income segments of society. Mm-hmm. However, in the current trend, you will see some microfinance banks, some commercial banks are getting into the space of microfinance banks. So we've seen some establishing microfinance units. The second difference is in terms of legislation. Mm-hmm. Commercial banks are regulated under Cap 488 mm-hmm. of the laws of Kenya. That's the Banking Act. The microfinance banks are regulated under the Microfinance Act 2006 okay. and the Prudential Regulations 2008. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a general perception that a microfinance bank is easier to access funds, whereas let's call them commercial bank sometimes become a little bit more difficult to access money. Is that a fact or is that just a perception?
I think it's perception.
Okay.
I would say, our doors are open. For microfinance banks, we have this tradition of, starting customers from their lowest level, growing with them, nurturing them through the process, in the process of their growth, you try and assess their needs. Mm. So you find someone was selling charcoal and graduated to own a shop and later became a larger SME. So microfinance banks have products that, nurture the customer through that process.
And I'm assuming that microfinance banks then also are able to give smaller loans, as it were. Yeah. You'll find that maybe commercial banks give maybe from 10, 15,000, but with the microfinance bank, you can get smaller loans.
Yes, you can get smaller loans. For instance, our smallest loan, you won't believe, is 100 shillings.
100 shillings?
Yes, depending on the channel of distribution.
Okay. Yeah. Explain that to me. How do you take a loan for 100? Why would somebody want to take a loan for 100 shillings?
There are channels that have been created by some microfinance institutions where, customers want to buy airtime, and airtime, you need 50 shillings, you need 100 shillings. So we've tailored products that suit that segment. But there are customers who want to boost their business by adding in, working capital. So we also have products that serve that particular segment. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Now, recently we know that the government introduced the capping law. How is that working out, and does that affect the microfinance banks as well?
Now, a tricky question, but when it comes to lending, there are certain factors that you take into account. For instance, the risk that customers pose at different segments are different. The risks are different. For instance, if you're lending to a larger corporate and you are lending to a bottom of pyramid customer, the risks are different.
Correct.
So when you cap rates, it means you're treating these two equally. In other words, you're saying lend at 10% or 12%, so no loan should exceed that amount, yet the risks are different. But the principle of lending is about assessing the risk of the customer and pricing the product appropriately. And if that customer has a good credit history, then you can again reprice the product give that customer a favorable price. Yeah.
Okay, so does that then pose a danger? Because then if it's being put at one cap, one level, is that affecting the banking industry somewhat negatively? Because then those who are high risk still enjoy the privilege of those who are low risk.
Yes, there are issues. Of course, the original intention was, when you cap rates, you're also trying to address the needs of a particular segment of society. The intention is good. I mean, you don't want to encourage predatory interest rates. Now, when you cap interest rates, you actually compel now banks to risk profile their customers. And what they do is now to try to shun off from customers who are riskier and move towards lending to, customers or more secure firms or individuals. The other is you've probably noticed that there is an increasing trend where, some institutions are investing more in government securities. And the reason that is happening is because this is a secure area to invest your money. And when you cap interest rates, it also has a negative impact in terms of, if I may expound on, shunning the smaller borrower. You'll see a tendency towards the loan size going up, but the number of borrowers going down.
Correct.
And what that tells you is that the small borrower is starting to get ignored. But what's the essence of capping? It's really to protect that common man. And you see the common man, that's where we have a bigger percentage of the population.
Of the population.
Yeah, the other element I think I would talk about is when you cap interest rates also, it tends to distort the monetary policy to a great extent, because you see, we see a trend where informal lending now starts to take shape. And, that's like off-record lending. And that tends to distort, monetary policy submissions. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's also another area in my reading about the, the microfinance bank, and I came across the regulated and non-regulated microfinance banks, and that became a point of interest. And maybe before we even get there, maybe I'd like us to define the term Shylocks, because there are those, it's become a very negative connotation. However, it may not be as negative as some people may think, because Shylocks, of course, are associated with somebody who gives you money and literally puts a gun to your head to get your money back, which may not be necessarily true. It could just be the regulation part of it. Maybe just define that for us.
I think to answer that question, allow me to differentiate between three types of microfinance institutions. One case is where we have regulated microfinance banks.
Okay.
These fall within the ambit of the Central Bank of Kenya. In other words, they are licensed and regulated by the Central Bank of Kenya. Now, for you to be in that status, then you have to go through a lot of vetting process.
A rigorous vetting process.
A rigorous vetting process. Your shareholders have to be vetted. Your board, your management have to be vetted. And, on a routine basis, there are a lot of areas where that institution needs to comply. And so
that's regulated microfinance.
That's regulated. Yeah, and the other issue, the other element is that these regulated microfinance institutions, or we call microfinance banks, are allowed to take deposits. I think that's one of the key elements. We are allowed to take deposits, and by extension, we also become members of the Kenya Deposit Insurance Corporation.
Let me just understand that part of taking deposits. This means I can open an account
precisely
with the bank and actually deposit the money there.
Yeah.
Okay.
The microfinance banks have current accounts, savings accounts, fixed deposits. They have loans. They have asset finance products. They have LPO financing products. Let's call them generally trade finance products, and many others. So that is allowed. So that is what we call deposit-taking operations, because now the microfinance bank is allowed to intermediate. We call it financial intermediation. Take deposits, lend. So that is allowed.
Okay.
Now, for non-licensed microfinance institutions, these ones pass through the company registrar. You go and register a company name. I think currently you have to get also some sort of clearance from central bank, but it's not part of regulation. But I think within the registration process, you are triggered to seek clearance from central bank for no objection. So that happens. Now, when you're in an era of capping of interest rates, for instance, where we are, informal lenders also emerge off record. And this is what probably you are referring to as Shylocks. I didn't want to call them Shylocks. But it's informal lending because it's,
And it is allowed within the law. Some of it is allowed within the law, because you've mentioned these non-licensed financial institutions are part of those who are allowed to, to handle finance as a financial institution, but are not regulated by CBK. In other words, CBK doesn't keep an eye on them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for non-licensed financial institutions, who oversees them, if not CBK?
They are not overseen by CBK. I think you must have seen there is an emerging bill intended to regulate that sector, the credit-only institutions. Yeah, so
And with the non-licensed financial institutions, you cannot deposit. You'd have to...
Yeah, you are not allowed to deposit. You are not allowed to have, current accounts, savings accounts. You cannot take deposits from the public. It's illegal.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now with non-licensed financial institutions, are they also regulated, or are they also under the capping law? Or are they able to, how do they work?
They are not under the capping law. The capping law affects institutions that are licensed under the Banking Act, CAP 488, and mainly commercial banks. Yeah. I think it's important to clarify that. Yeah.
All right, let's come back to microfinance banks, and maybe some of one of the things that I've noticed with most banks and financial institutions is the uptake of technology. And I'm sure microfinance banks would not be left behind. Are there products that have, for instance, there's some commercial banks where you literally can do everything on your phone. You can, transact on your phone. Is that something that maybe has affected the microfinance sector?
This is, I must say, microfinance banks have also been very keen in adopting technology. If you look around, you'll see some have adopted agency banking. We've seen a lot of shift towards paperless banking. We've seen a lot of reduction in,
bank hall,
brick and mortar structures. Customers being enabled to repay their loans through the mobile, customers being enabled to open accounts through the mobile. So there is a shift, and microfinance banks are not left behind. Yes.
Okay, is that a good thing? Because one of the things that you realize is that it has spurred growth in the commercial banks, the uptake of technology. And some people basically can, for instance, I think the last time I probably entered a banking hall is maybe more than 5-6 months ago, but it's because of the technology platforms that are there.
Yeah, today if you walk into some of the banking halls, you'll realize, they are almost empty. The reason that happens is a customer opens an account today, and immediately you open the account, you're told you don't need to be coming here. Don't close your shop and come to the banking hall. So you can deposit money. And if you need to withdraw money, we've registered you on mobile banking, so you can access your funds through mobile banking. Yeah.
Okay. And maybe as a summary, as we finish, basically your advice to somebody who's seeking a loan. We have cooperatives, we have table banking, we have microfinance, we have commercial banks. What should advise the reason or how I go about, taking up financial help from whatever institution?
Now, microfinance institutions have developed products that are tailored to suit the needs of the, let's say, the micro, small, medium enterprises and individuals. We have asset financing, for instance. We have LPO financing. We have all sorts of products that are for
Available,
yeah. Mm-hmm. So obviously, for you need to differentiate yourself. The mode of delivery is very important. Your turnaround time. Customers care about turnaround time.
correct.
Yeah, and the convenience. Mm-hmm. Those institutions that have moved towards technology, delivery of services through technology, have an upper edge, because then, from the comfort of my house, I can be able to access a loan from a bank. That's very nice, exciting, because otherwise I would have to, shut my house and go to the...
Stop what you're doing, basically.
Yeah,
go and,
take a matatu and go to the banking hall to go and queue and then get money. But this has been enabled through the phone. So I think innovation is very important. Yes, of responding to the customer's needs.
Okay, what about minimum deposits? You'll find that some banks discourage people by virtue of the fact that you need a certain amount of money as a minimum amount that you have in the account. Does that also affect microfinance banking?
Not exactly. Microfinance banks have tailored products. And if you come to the institution, which I had, we have products where the customers can save from as little as 1 shilling.
Wow.
You wouldn't believe.
From 100 shillings loan to 1 shilling deposit, that's
yes,
quite...
we allow 1 shilling saving. Yeah, so we have products, so there is no minimum amount.
Okay.
Yeah, you can open the account and start saving from 1 shilling and above.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Irenaeus Gishana, who is the CEO for Maisha Microfinance Bank, for joining us this morning. Basically just demystifying microfinance and also identifying some of the differences between commercial banks and microfinance banks. Now, we had asked you a question earlier on, and this was in regards to the 2/3 gender bill, which is supposed to be debated and passed tomorrow, or may fail. And from the legislators that we had, including today, there seems to be a general feeling that they may not, well, it's 50-50. It's difficult to tell, but there you go. For now, let me just look at the feedback and what you have to say. We have Victor Sangani, who says that coerced or bribed. Please structure the question in a way that we can say, because for him, he feels that maybe some of them have been bribed. Truth be told, this is Julius, who says, without fixing this quagmire on how the nominations should be done, this good bill will be a slap on the face of the good intentions of our Constitution. Well, that's where we're going to have to wind up the show this morning. It is now 10 minutes to 9. We would like to thank you for watching Morning Express this morning and take this opportunity to wish you a fantastic and a wonderful day. Do stay with us on KTN News. We've got Brenda Zeda Radido coming up with News Center at 9 o'clock. So from me and Morning Express, we say thank you for watching. Do take care of yourselves and each other.